Hey everybody, Dawn Zoldai here, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and we are live in Baltimore, Maryland at the FAA's Drone Symposium. And this stream is sponsored by Aerovigilance, and I have with us here Tom. He is the CEO, and you guys might know Aerovigilance are also creators, essentially, of the Counter UAS Hub. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And Tom, you're in town not just for the FAA Drone Symposium, but the Counter UAS ARC met yesterday as well, the Aviation Rulemaking Committee.
Yeah, we did actually, and although I can't go into a lot of details, we had a great meeting yesterday. There are a lot of thoughtful and forward-thinking individuals from a lot of different industry groups around the United States that are really trying to provide some great input and some recommendations that might help set the stage for drone security in the future here in the United States.
You know, I know one of the challenges, Tom, is that these folks are like you, they're entrepreneurs, they've got full-time jobs, and you guys are meeting intermittently. That's a big challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe a potential timeline or some milestones that you kind of see on the horizon?
Yeah, that I can tell you that there's a lot of work into your point. There's everybody's got full-time jobs, and we're doing this as a side thing in between all of our other things we've got going on. But we've been meeting quite often, and although I can't really talk about a timeline, I think that's more for the FAA to talk about what they think when they might have some reports out. But I can tell you that the groups are diligently working towards meeting some of those goals.
Well, that's awesome. And no better person to have on it than you, Tom. But you're also on a panel today later. Tell us a little bit of that.
Yeah, I was really flattered to be invited by the FAA to talk drone security in the national airspace. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well as theirs, because they are responsible for the safety of the national airspace and are very interested in not only the drone technology that's out there, but counter drone technology that's going to make an impact not only for things like beyond visual line of sight, but can also enable the future integration of drones in the airspace beyond those types of things when it comes to UTM, urban air mobility, all those other different types of initiatives. So I think there's a way that they can potentially all work together.
Well, we're hearing a lot so far. You just had the keynote this morning, a little bit about beyond visual line of sight also in that second panel. We're hearing a lot about certifications, exemptions, streamlining things. From the counter UAS perspective, do these technologies actually have to get certified by the FAA, or what is the process? Is there even a process right now, I guess is my question.
I think that's part of where we're at right now. We're trying to understand what the right thing is to do, because we have to ensure that however we use whatever the technologies are or how they're potentially deployed, that they don't impact the safety of the national airspace, because we don't want to increase the risk to the types of things we're trying to protect, whether it's critical infrastructure, airports, large gatherings, things like that. So I think there's a lot of work to do to further understand the technology and how to properly deploy it in a homeland security setting.
Yeah, because I mean, the military's been using counter UAS, but obviously concerns them, especially in urban. Is out there saying hello, as is I think it's Shemroy Manning as well. So great to see you guys out there. Thank you so much. So just a little preview for your panel later today, and I think Abby Smith is on that.
Yes.
Abigail Smith, some other really great folks. What are you guys going to be talking about?
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the things that we just actually mentioned. We're going to be discussing remote ID, the integration of technologies into the airspace, and all those other similar types of topics that relate to some of the topics we're talking about on the ARC. Just how do we safely deploy and use some of these systems in a homeland security environment in a way that does not impact the safety of the national airspace.
Well, remote ID is a huge topic, Tom, right? I mean, we've got what, less like 30 days, roughly, a little bit more, before drone pilots have to become, you know, between you and me, I haven't seen a ton of technologies out there right now to help people become remote ID client. I know Avionics has the Ping remote ID broadcast module they just put out recently. I know Pierce Aerospace is doing a lot in the defense space, but on the commercial side, I'm not fully tracking. I'm sure they have a thing and they're going to be launching it if they haven't already for this. But you know, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah. So to your point, I think a lot of us are waiting to see what happens. A lot of counter UAS technology providers are making software updates so that they can receive and be able to decode those remote ID message elements. So I think you're going to see that to be fairly common. Downloading some of the phone apps because I'm curious to see how well they work. But then again, it gets down to the point of, a lot of people, and you and I have had this conversation before,
Yeah.
is a lot of these things. Well, if it's not broadcasting remote ID, then whatever the result is, as we've talked about, we don't know what the range of these broadcast modules are going to be, and we don't know what sort of density of receivers are going to be needed. So we just kind of have to really consider it as a data point and not as a definitive threat indicator. I think you have to look at a wide variety of data before you can really understand.
That's a great segue to a shameless plug for a paper Tom and I wrote together that's on his Counter UAS Hub website. What do we call it?
It's Remote ID, a guide for security professionals.
There you see, he knows the title. I also have it on my website. Well, Tom, thank you so much. I know you've got a lot of things to do, and we've got 2 more guests coming up here, two incredible additional guests. So anything you want to say before you go?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. If you want to learn more about what's going on in the counter UAS industry, check out www.coashub.com. We keep the website updated almost daily.
They do. All right. Thank you so much.
All
right. See you, bud. All right, next up, Scott Stoffman from AUVSI. He is their policy guy, and he's coming on in hot right here. Hey. So lots going on in the policy world, Scott. Like so many things have been pushed out in the last 30 days, I feel like, by the FAA, maybe because Congress is meeting soon on their reauthorization. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But what I want to talk, Scott, about is that keynote this morning. You were in there, I think.
Yep.
What are some of the big takeaways for folks that don't have the opportunity to be here in person? That they're going to want to know about?
I think one of the things that most commercial drone operators don't necessarily pay that much attention to or know that much about is Part 137.
Yes.
So aerial application drones, sort of in that space where you'd see a traditional crop sprayer plane. We're seeing a more streamlined process where drone operators are able to get a drone platform that's carrying herbicides sort of in smaller amounts for more strategic applications. So they're not having to use as much. And they're trying to get sort of a normalized process to be able to get that more approval faster and more reliable, right?
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things they touched on. We're also looking at sort of the digital conspicuity, sort of like drones being able to see each other, traditional aircraft being able to see each other, as well as just what is UTM going to look like and how are companies thinking about that process. We have a number of companies that are working on drone delivery that I think are trying to figure out how can they, in their actual operations, get something up and running that is going to be useful, that all of the companies can ingest and then make strong, strategic decisions about.
Right.
That's one of the things that we're talking about there.
Yeah, so much. They kept using this term, Scott, and I'm pulling up my notes here, so I'm cheating a little bit. It's like summary grant waivers. Tell me about that, because I've done my own research on the FAA process, and that's kind of a new term that I was not really familiar with, that I kept hearing in the keynote this morning.
So if you look at countries outside the United States, they have these sort of like standard operating procedures, or kind of what does the specific concept of operations look like based on the risk that's established around that operation. FAA uses the term sort of severity and likelihood when they're doing a risk assessment. So if they can take operations that look similar, if you're doing long linear inspection, if you're in sort of a shielded operation near a structure, how could they then be able to allow other operators who are doing something similar to go through that approval process more quickly? If they're bringing a base set of operations to the table, the risk is similar. If it's, the airspace is similar, the ground risk is similar, how can they speed those operations and still have safety of the NAS and safety for the operators?
So summary grant approval. So it's almost like in May, those 4 exemptions that were put out, in addition to the beyond visual line of sight kind of notice and request for public comment. So if those 4 waivers or exemptions, are granted, would those then form a basis, hypothetically, for this kind of summary grant approval? In other words, if I'm company X and company Y has this approval, if I kind of run the checklist like company Y, then it's more likely I'll be approved in a more rapid fashion.
Yeah, or you at least have a good base to operate from. One of the things that FAA has said to us is that they only pulled those 4 specific exemption requests because that's what's in the pipeline. So they made it clear to us, like, if you're in industry and you want to do something that's outside of the norms of operations, you need to submit it, and then the FAA can put that out for other people to potentially be able to replicate. And so, if you're doing interesting drones and you want to find ways to get the access to that operation, you need to reach out to the FAA and be discussing these things with them. They're trying to find more standardized ways to get drones doing interesting things safely.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, the theme that's already coming across in the limited time we've had together so far during this conference. By the way, Santiago is out there saying hello, and there is a question from Shemroy. I'm going to just go ahead and ask you, Scott. Any chance we can get more of an integration equivalency with friendly countries such as Canada here with licenses?
I think that would require some sort of cooperative agreement at the sort of federal level across the AAs. I know that we've had some discussions and some announcements on that on the AAM side. If you also look at the different sort of ICAO annexes that are out there, there's discussion about it. But the NAS here in the United States is unique. It's the complexity and safety that we have here with our operations is different than other countries. I think there's more of a potential to take what you've done here in the United States and take it somewhere else. But it's definitely a discussion I think that's happening at the international levels as we see more and more operators doing things internationally, not just here.
It's funny. This is a great question, by the way. Thank you, Shemroy. I was talking to Dr. Sarah Nilsson today, and she teaches at Embry-Riddle. And she was telling me, not only is she a general aviation pilot, she's a Part 107 pilot. She said she was able to take the Canadian basic drone pilot license and the UK and a European one all online. So she has like 4 different drone pilot licenses right now. So anyway, working on it. Thank you so much. Anything you wanted to say before we get to Kevin Mars, the drone guy from the FAA?
I'm happy to be here for the Drone Symposium today and tomorrow, but I'm also really excited to be here for the AAM Summit for the day and a half after that. We've been really leaning in on working with AAM companies because it's the future of integration of new aircraft into the NAS alongside what we're going to be doing with drones. So I'm excited that we have both those together this week.
I love that you're doing that. I love that this is combined. I love that there are AAM people here sitting in on the drone keynote and vice versa. I think it's so hugely important, as you said. So thank you, AUVSI, for supporting this, and always great to talk to you, Scott.
Thanks, Don.
All right, talk to you later. And last but certainly not least, because we are on a break and we want to stay timely here, we've got Kevin, the drone guy Mars. Everybody knows him if you're in the drone space. And here he is with his big smile.
I'm back.
He's back. He's back. So Kevin, this is like the 8th. Is this the 8th summit?
This is the 8th FAA Drone Symposium. 8th. And I feel like it's been a lot more, but maybe that's just because we haven't been back to Baltimore in person for quite a while.
It's so funny because when I was taking my lift last night from the airport, the guy was like, so when's the last time you were in Baltimore? I think it's been 20 years. And I'm from Philly. So, I mean, I'm excited to be in Baltimore here. But let's talk, Kevin, a little bit about, the themes that are already coming out here at the symposium. I know you and your team have worked really hard on this. Super important. I'm hearing things like summary grants. I'm hearing streamline approvals as long as safety is not compromised. I'm hearing things like, beyond visual line of sight rulemaking, hypothetically by next August is what I heard today.
Oh, you did?
I did. I took notes, actually. So tell us, kind of a little bit of an overview of what we can expect from this symposium.
So I think what's really exciting about this particular symposium is all the things that we've been talking about for the past 5, 7, 10 years maybe are happening now. So we're talking about normalizing beyond visual line of sight operations. We're talking about implementing an unmanned traffic management system here to advance the operations and deliveries and things of that nature. So those things that we've been talking about and are coming, they're kind of here now. So you mentioned the grants and the exemptions that are happening. Those are the first steps into reality. It's not talking anymore. Now we have these things that are out there. They're actually available. They're actually happening. And we're actually scaling this. So the exciting piece on the drone side is that everything we've been talking about now is starting to actually happen. So we're not talking about what's coming necessarily, but we're talking about what's here now and how are we going to expand it. And then, of course, the other half of this event is really exciting because it'll be our first ever Advanced Air Mobility Summit. So we're getting into air taxis and how are we going to implement and integrate air taxis into our national airspace system. So these 3 days are going to be just absolutely packed with really good info.
Absolutely. And by the way, everybody, we're going to be doing a stream about the AAM Summit this Thursday in 2 days during that summit at 10:30 Eastern. So stay tuned for that. By the way, we have Jennifer Rosenblum out there is a safety consultant and saying this is very exciting. So yes, it is, Jennifer. Thank you for listening in. And Chris Genesith has a great question. He's going to use your words back at you here, Kevin.
Here it comes.
The question is, what phase are we in now? Is it crawl, walk, or run? It's a good one, buddy.
I did not approve that. I think we're in between the walk and run. I really think we're beyond crawl, obviously. At this point, most of us are walking here, and some of us that are running. And why I say that is because these we're talking about the integration of drones and what we're doing. And we just had a BB-LOS session in the plenary, and it talked about how we're definitely not at run yet, because not everybody's flying BB-LOS. That's not happening right now, but some people are, and we're using that information then to scale it to beyond just those people and make sure it's a scalable, routine, repeatable operation. So somewhere in between.
And of course, saying next, we've got a lot of people chiming in real quick and a little bit over time.
I'm never supposed to read.
Well, the commenter said he saw you by the third summit. There's a lot more registrations with the remote ID unit filings.
Yes. What we're doing is the registration to go to up ID number information. And we're seeing a lot of activity now. So between now and the 16th of this year, we want everybody to aware if you have a drone and it's capable, that they back the drone zone and make the registration that remote ID serial, so you can be with the rule.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kevin, as always, we're at a conference. The even with the secret conference maps is still not all of them, and it looks a little blurry out here. So, and we're at time. Thank you, everybody, chiming in. Clint Horzell, by the way, and much more air taxis. Yes, Clint.
Yes.
I agree. Brandon Barros, keep it moving forward. 108. Let's go. So, and that's great way to end this, everybody. Let's go. We are out here. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
See ya.